In this video, we're featuring a 55 Chevy convertible that's been in the same family since 1960. This thing has been a show car, it's been a drag car, and this car still lives on to this day. This is the story of Ron Snick's Shelley Lynn 55 Chevy Gasser. So let's rewind the clock to January of 1960, and that's when Ron Snick bought this 55 Chevy Bel Air convertible from R&M Chevrolet in Roselle, Illinois for $1,136.33. This car was his daily transportation, and it was painted in a two-tone configuration with coral and white. And in May of 1960, just a few months after he bought it, he paid $150 to have it painted all white. And this was just the beginning of this car's customization. And then in 1961, he got married. He and Barbara Jean Snick drove away from their wedding in this car. Not only did they drive away from the wedding, they actually drove this car to Florida for their week-long honeymoon. We'll see in some of these early pictures that this thing was not starting out as a drag car. It was actually more of a mild custom. You can see it's got spotlights up there by the windshield. It originally had fender skirts on it, but those were taken off when he changed the wheels and tires out. You can see on the back of the car, it's got blue dots on the taillights, a very popular thing. And if you look at this car today, those blue dots are still there. So we'll see on some of these pictures and some of these video clips, the original modified setup on this car was more of a mild custom. You can see under the hood, it's got 3 Deuces on it. And then later we'll see even more footage that shows that it had 2 4-barrel carburetors on it with a cool scoop, finned aluminum Corvette valve covers. It had some really neat stuff. So during the 1960s, Ron and Barbara brought 3 children into the world: Sherry, Todd, and Shelley Lynn. Now Shelley Lynn, that's obviously ringing a bell because that's what's on the side of this car. So if you're putting your daughter's name on the side of your drag car, she must be pretty special to you. Todd shared some really great pictures from his family photo album and even some home videos that have been digitized a few years ago, and this is just absolute treasure. These old pictures, and especially the film, I mean, it really gives you an idea of how much time they spent with this car and how involved the family was. So the family car at this point was a 62 Impala 2-door hardtop, beautiful car, and he is flat towing his 55 Chevy race car with it. So a really cool combination. Obviously the whole family could ride, the 3 kids could ride in the back seat. It was a cool combination whether you're going to the car show or to the drag strip. And I love this video because you can see the flagman jump up and down, you can see the cars take off, and the chase vehicle is actually hanging with that 55 for a pretty good ways, and then finally he's really starting to stretch its legs out here on the top end. Just a cool piece of video from back in this car's early days. And we'll see the car show setup was pretty elaborate. They had toolboxes, they had trophies, they had all sorts of cool stuff that went on display with the car. He even had a set of steel wheels and slicks that he would put on display with the car, and the show setup on this thing had a set of Mickey Thompson polished wheels, beautiful combination. It had white walls on the front, and it had some M&H Racemaster tires on the back, and they took this thing everywhere. But then he got more and more serious about drag racing, so here are some of the modifications he did during the 1960s. He installed a roll bar in this car. This is 4-inch round pipe, and you can see he didn't have a bender. This was just pieced together. Obviously not something that would pass tech today, but it was just fine back in the 60s. He put spacers in the control arms, and that allowed the weight to transfer a little better to the rear wheels. He moved the rear leaf springs inboard of the frame rails to provide more room for tires and wheels. He got rid of the original Chevrolet rear end and put in a 57 Olds rear, which he welded up the spider gears on and installed a set of 557 gears in it. Now we'll see in some of these early pictures at the drag strip, it had some really crazy looking collectors on those headers, a very wild looking setup, and those later got changed for more conventional fender well headers. So then Ron got with Bob Coughlin and Don McClory, and they completely stripped the interior out of the car, replacing it with just sheet metal on the door panels and other interior panels. They also modified some bucket seats to put in this car. You can see that they have very low backs. They're a very wide and flat bucket seat. So you can see on the dash, instead of a radio, it's got a couple of Stewart Warner gauges. And then instead of the heater controls, it's got a little block out panel You can see there's a toggle switch on the dash that's for the magneto, and you can see a push button in place of the original ignition switch. So he also removed the original steel front sheet metal, replacing it with a one-piece fiberglass front end. Then he radiused the rear wheel wells. He did that with a saw, and it's a little bit crude, but that's just how they did it back then. And then he removed the gas tank and spare tire well, boxed the firewall in, and moved the engine back. I mean, this was getting pretty serious here at this point. So that first paint job that happened in 1960 was 150 bucks. The one that happened in 1970 by Pete Kramer was probably a little more than that, but it's still hanging on to this day. You can see on there 321 D Gas, Ron Snick lettered on the door, Shelley Lynn lettered on the quarter panel, Snick Automotive Limited, Itasca, Illinois lettered on the quarter panel, paint by Pete. I mean, there's so much really nice, tasteful lettering going on with this thing. And if you look back on the deck lid, there's even more lettering. You've got the Gophers listed there, Todd, Sherry, and Shelley. And then we've got a neat little character there saying 55's forever, only the strong survive. And then over on the right side of the deck lid, we've got the pit crew, Don, Bob, Barb, and Joe. Later on, he even removed the front brakes altogether for weight-saving purposes. So we're talking about a pretty hefty 55 Chevy that's stopping with just 57 Olds drum brakes on the back. Around this time is also where the engine combination got a little more serious. So the whole time this car was a drag car, it was small block Chevy powered. In its most potent combination, it had a steel crank, pink rods, and it had angle plug fuel cylinder heads on it. And up top was an Enderle mechanical fuel injection with a Vertex magneto. So this combination ran pretty well, but it never made a full pass down the drag strip. In fact, it broke a valve on the very first pass and damaged the cylinder head and damaged a piston, and the car was never really the same after that. He ran it a few more times and took it to some car shows in the 1970s, and then ended up parking the car around 1975. By far, my favorite picture out of the Snick family photo album is this one. This is from McCormick Place in downtown Chicago. This is an indoor car show, and just look at this setting. The car is set up there. They've got a really cool board there with the information on it. And the three kids, they've grown up a little bit now. This is the mid-70s, but you've got Todd, Sherry, and Shelley Lynn posing with this car. These are the coolest kids you've ever seen. Well, in 1980, Todd was growing up. He was in high school, and he was into hot rods and fast cars, so he took this car and started drag racing it again. So he was running low 12s in this car. He took the 4-speed transmission out of it and put a turbo 400 in it. He put nitrous on this car, and he ran it like that for a little while. It ran in the 11s with the automatic and the nitrous setup, but it was very hard to stop, so he ended up putting a set of disc brakes on the front of the car. Then he parked it for a few years, and then in 1989 he pulled it out again to drive away from his wedding. Here's another priceless picture from the family collection. This is Todd and his new bride Jackie getting into the 55 on their wedding day in 1989. Another special memory in this car, another special milestone. Then 30 years later, Todd's oldest son Cody used the car to drive away from his wedding. He also used the car for a gender reveal burnout when they had their first child in 2020. Quite possibly this car's biggest milestone was in 1997. Now this thing had been in hiding for a few years, but they brought it back out, got it running and driving again, got it cleaned up again, just in time for Ron Snick to drive Shelley Lynn to her wedding. What a big moment for this very special car. And then unfortunately Ron Snick passed away in 2016. So this car again was on display there at his funeral, and it brought back a lot of emotions for Barbara. It obviously brought back a lot of emotions for the kids because they had grown up and had lives of their own, and this car remained as one of those really huge staples in their lives. Unfortunately, Shelley Lynn also passed away in October of 2023. So obviously that was a very tough time for the Snick family, but it makes this car mean even more to them. And Todd continues To drive this thing, he's continuing to tweak on that setup so that he can use the car a little bit more. For instance, he took the 557 gears out of the rear end and put a set of 373s in there with a posi unit instead of the welded up spider gears, and he's also given it a more mild-mannered small block engine. So this thing's got a single carburetor on it. There's nothing real crazy going on inside of the engine, but it runs good, it sounds good through those fender well headers. You know, this car's got the right look, and it's got plenty of horsepower to do what Todd wants to do with it. Even though Ron Snick passed away, and this car's namesake, Shelley Lynn, passed away, this car is in good hands with Todd. He cherishes this thing. It's a member of his family, and it's always been there for him. He has always known this car. He's been inside and outside of this thing, underneath it, on top of it. Everything you can do to this car, he's been there and he's done it. He's lived with this car and he's lived for this car for many years, and he continues to keep this thing together and continues to tell its story. And I'm so happy that he told this car's story to me and allowed me to tell this car's story to you. Thank you for watching.